Hey everyone, if you had to pick a smaller polisher, would you pick the Rupes HLR75 3-inch polisher, or would you pick the Flex PXE80 1 and 3-inch polisher? Well, I'm gonna give you some pros and cons of each in this video, but I'm curious to know which one you would pick and why. So come check out my review. Okay, so generally speaking, I actually don't like to review products on my channel. I prefer to make video content that's more neutral and positive. But I decided to make a review on this because everybody asks which one I use, because I do have both. And also because there's positives and negatives to both, and one may be better for you if under a certain circumstance, and the other one may be better under a different circumstance, then I don't feel bad, because you may want both of them, or you may choose one or the other based on your circumstance, not necessarily that there's just some clearly much better machine. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is the design. So the design of these is definitely different, all from the trigger to the shape of the machine itself. So the Flex PXE80 I've used for a long time. I don't generally have an issue with the design of the machine and holding it. I tend to hold it like this. That's probably the most that I hold it, or like that. This is kind of shaped similarly to the older Rupes 3-inch polisher that just kind of like rounded off and had this edge here. So a lot of people don't like that. They don't think that that's super comfortable. I've never had an issue with that, but that is a factor. I will say, the Rupes, in a sense, it's got like a little indentation. It's definitely meant to be grabbed and kind of have your hand in a pocket. I don't feel like it's super much better, but a lot of people like it. And then, of course, you notice that one is significantly longer than the other, and you would think that that means that it's really difficult to get into spaces, but to be 100% honest with you, I haven't ran into a situation where I thought that this would fit much worse than the PXE80. So in terms of the overall design, I'm kind of indifferent to the overall design. Now I'll show you the trigger. So the trigger on these are drastically different. So there's a couple of annoyances with both. So on the Flex PXE80, you have this trigger here. Now, I don't even know what the purpose of this is, but if you just push it up, it just spins slowly. What you have to do is you have to push it up and then depress the trigger in to lock it. Now you can not lock it by pushing it down, but when you let go, it's gonna lock. So it's pretty much always locked. Now the annoyance isn't so much with the trigger necessarily, but you see that the selection is a digital selection. Well, if you turn this on 4, you turn it off and you turn it back on, it doesn't remember that it's at 4. So that can be a kind of annoying if you happen to be polishing at max power, which I do feel. I'll get to that later, why you might polish more frequently on max power on this. So, that's a little annoying, but it's not that bad. I definitely like the trigger better on the PXE80. So the trigger on this, it does have a physical button. So whatever setting you keep it on is 100% gonna stay on that setting. So that's definitely a plus. And maybe it's because I used the PXE80 for so long that I still haven't gotten used to it. And I'm sure this doesn't affect everybody, but I will tell you personally that on this machine, I despise the trigger on this machine. So there's a couple reasons I hate this trigger. First of all, when I'm done, like when I'm in the middle of polishing, I want to set something down. On the Flex, what I typically do is I just set it on its back and it's fine. Well, On the Rupes, if you don't turn the power off, like you hear that clicking, if you don't turn the power off to 0, you can't set it down because it spins. I really hate that. And like if I'm setting it down, then sometimes, you know, the pad is touching a surface maybe I don't want it to touch. Not all the time though. It's not a super big problem, but it's definitely not something I can get used to. You can set it, it does balance where you can set it down like this, and that's probably what I need to start getting used to. But it is easy to, it's easily tipping. It will easily tip over. Like you can set it, but like if you just like set it down and walk away, sometimes it falls over just like that. Like it was about to fall over. So it is balanced enough to set it like this, but not always in a rush. It doesn't set this way, so really I end up setting it on its side most of the time, and you know, so usually the pad is close to or potentially making contact with the ground. The other thing I don't like is there's no way to lock this trigger in. So you have to press the trigger at all times. I don't like that at all. This, I'd like to be able to turn it on and set it. Now, granted, yes, you're maybe only holding this for, you know, 30 to 40 seconds at a time while you make a pass. But overall, you know, if you're doing a lot of area of like an intricate car that requires you to be holding a 3-inch polisher for a long time, that time adds up and gets annoying. And so something that I found myself doing a lot since I've got the HLR75 is, you know, I put product on the pad and I bump this trigger and it sprays everywhere. That's never happened one time with the Flex. The way the trigger is on the Flex, it just absolutely will never do that. So this is probably my biggest annoyance. If I had to change one thing, you know, I don't know what it would be. It would probably, now the trigger's great because you can get like a variable in a sense, but I would trade that in a heartbeat for potentially maybe the power is only controlled through the side wheel and there was no trigger. I don't know. I may actually, I'm not sure how I'm gonna work on this, but I just gotta get used to it. So that's ultimately my biggest issue is I bump the trigger, product sprays everywhere. I'm not thinking, I set it down, you know, on top like I do with the Flex and it sprays everywhere, or, you know, just whatever just starts up. So that drives me crazy. But I'm confident I'll get used to that after a while. Now, you know, we talk about versatility, and I think, you know, there's no question here that the Rupes is less versatile than the Flex. So the Flex has a quick disconnect, and it comes with a orbital, a smaller like 3mm orbit, as well as a rotary, and it comes with, this is the rotary attachment, and it comes with another, well, I've bought extra orbitals so that like I can just quick swap them. So like I have, you know, a 1-inch on a rotary sitting handy, and I have, you know, a couple orbitals, one with a 3-inch backing plate and one with a 1-inch backing plate. So from versatility standpoint, like if you're the kind of person that needs like one polisher, you know, you're trying to save on space or save on money, the Flex is better in that sense. The Rupes, you would need to buy the Hybrid Mini Nano polisher, the thin one. And on that, it's a little bit more of a hassle to change between like orbital and rotary. So definitely the Flex is gonna win out on that. It's just a simple quick disconnect. But allegedly, I've heard that the Hybrid Nano might be updating, so that may become easier. And then the Flex now has this FS140 attachment. So it's this like corded attachment here. So it comes on a rotary. it plugs in. This allows you to like get behind door handles and stuff. I see the value in it, but I don't use it as much as I thought I would. It doesn't finish as well in certain areas because of course it is a rotary. And then like this cable is necessary in some instances, but honestly I find it to be awkward, you know, like I want to get up into something and I'm like holding this and trying to find out where to put the cable. So I haven't used it as much as I thought, but it's still a valuable attachment. If you're using the Rupes, you would need to get like the long neck attachment, probably for the Hybrid Nano mini polisher, and you know, kind of prop the door handle open and get up underneath there. So if you have one of those, you would know what I'm talking about. So that's kind of the main differences. Now, which one has a better battery life and better power? So I would say that the Rupes has better power. The Rupes uses an 18-volt battery. The Flex, this is a extended battery that I purchased separately. It comes with a much smaller one. The 12-volt, this is a 12-volt battery. I do feel like there's more power behind the Rupes than there is with the Flex, and that's the primary reason I'm actually switching to the Rupes polishers. I'm waiting on my new 5 and 6 inch that we pre-ordered. They're cordless. I don't do corded polishers, I don't like it. So power is a big factor, and I feel like the Rupes has more of it, and therefore, you know, you may be running it on a lower setting than the Flex, which I find frequently. I never almost run this below the setting of 3, and it's almost always on 3 or 4. So battery life is probably comparable, but maybe because you're using less power, once you get used to using less power on the Rupes, I feel like the Rupes is going to last a little bit longer. In either case, they both come with 2 batteries. They're both fairly charged by the time you get done with one, and I have an entire bank of chargers, so it doesn't really impact me much. And then the last bit, you know, the main reason people like to buy expensive polishers is because they're smoother in your hands. Now, I've had carpal tunnel surgery on both wrists, and I have cubital tunnel syndrome as well, which means my elbows are pinching nerves as well. I do prefer the Rupes, but it's not a drastic smoothness of operation, and that again could be have to do with the max power on the Flex. You can kind of hear like it's like a little bit louder and more vibrating. This sounds a little bit smoother. So this does tend to vibrate in my hand more than this, so I do prefer using this as somebody who has those wrist issues. If you're pretty healthy and younger than me, honestly, you probably won't have much of a factor difference there. So, you know, at the end of the day, I think the Flex is great. This is my favorite Flex polisher. I definitely like this better than I like their larger polishers. I feel like their larger polishers are definitely underpowered compared to the Rupes. But you know, this is great, especially if you have a small shop, maybe a limited budget. You can only have, you know, this. Like, this is great because it's a 3 inch, it's a 1 inch, and it's a 1 inch rotary. So that's good. If you're looking for a little bit smoother and more power and willing to have more tools, and you can get past the little trigger piece that I don't like, I think the Rupes is the answer. And a little bit more ergonomic perhaps. But so versatility and, you know, kind of saving money, I guess you could say, because you're not buying 2 polishers. I think the Flex is the right answer, especially if you're not doing a lot of heavy corrections. And to be honest, we've completed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars with this as our primary 3 inch, and so it gets the job done. It's just, I do think the Rupes might be a little bit better option in that case.